It's wonderful to have you all here, and we have some of our wonderful class students with us today here live at the church. And I'm very excited about today. I was introduced to Lisa Fenner by Jan Rose, our virtual board certified health and wellness coach. If you think Jan and I look alike, well, that's because we're sisters. So wave hello, Jan. And I was really quite excited when Jan mentioned Lisa to us to only learn that it would be wonderful to have Lisa and Sharp Again Naturally as part of our affiliate program. And our mission, the Mind, Music, and Movement Foundation's mission, aligns so beautifully with their mission. Both of our missions are about educating people on how to improve their brain health. Our foundations offer many live classes in Palm Beach Gardens and virtually to address movement, balance, and keeping our body fluid, as well as your voice. As we all know, all of these modalities can improve brain health. Lisa is the co-founder and board chair of Sharp Again Naturally, SAN, and a board certified health and wellness coach. For 20 years, Lisa's clients have been helped through better nutrition and healthier lifestyles for a range of health issues, including MS, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis. Lisa uses both Eastern and Western modalities in her life and work. Lisa's involvement with elders, including those with dementia, goes back to almost 30 years to the new Jewish home in New York, where she started as a volunteer and is a longtime member of the board. And I must say personally, it's an amazing place. Sharp Again Naturally, founded in 2012, educates the public and medical community about causes of memory loss and dementia and what can be done to prevent, treat, and often reverse these conditions. Through their Stay Sharp program, SAN takes an active role in empowering all of us to keep our brains healthy and sharp throughout our lives. Lisa has been interviewed on podcasts, radio, and television, and presents in person and via webinars to lay and professional audiences. I'm very excited to say that after this webinar, you will have the opportunity to sign up for a 6-week program with Lisa and her lifestyle coaches as well. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce this amazing lady, Lisa Fenner.
Thank you, Beth, so much. It's just great to be here. It was wonderful to meet you and to see what you have done with this beautiful foundation that you've created and all of these people who are benefiting from it. And I hope that what I share with you today will take that even further. So without further ado, we'll get started. I'll share my screen. And we'll go into the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, I'd ask that you hold them to the end or just type them into the chat box. May is here and she's helping to monitor the chat. And then at the end, we can take questions. So the topic today of our conversation is a sharper mind as we age. You are all taking such great care of your bodies and your minds. And we have a few other things to share with you that we think will be really helpful. So what you'll hear about today is a little bit about Sharp Again Naturally, who we are. You'll get a sense of what is normal aging for the brain and when should you start to be a little concerned. The different causes of memory loss that our Medical and Dental Advisory Board have come up with and that we talk about in our presentations. And then nutrition, stress, and sleep. We're going to do a deep dive into those 3 topics today, get a little bit more detailed, and then tell you what you can do now to keep your minds sharp. So first of all, Sharp Again Naturally was started 10 years ago because we first heard about people who were able to regain their cognition after they had been given diagnoses of Alzheimer's disease. And this was fascinating. As a health coach and someone who worked with elders a lot, I had seen how quickly the numbers had escalated of Alzheimer's cases. But when we finally heard that there were causes, it was a eureka moment, really. And as you can imagine, when we first started speaking about what we learned, people thought we were a little nuts to say that there was anything you could really do to preserve your memory or to restore it. So the mission of Sharp Again Naturally is to educate, empower, and support everyone to take an active role in optimizing their cognitive health using a scientifically based multi-therapeutic approach. And that multi-therapeutic approach is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. It's looking at many different things at once because we're complex beings and we're exposed to lots of things, and all of these things can play a role. Our long-term vision is a world where dementia can be prevented, treated, and reversed, and where everyone has the ability to remain cognitively healthy throughout their lives. And that is really why we are so passionate about the work that we do. So, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention are saying that dementia is not a natural part of aging. We should be able to keep our cognition, our minds functioning well, not perfectly necessarily, but well into old age. So what is normal? Okay, normal aging is when even at age 30, your processing speed begins to slow down. You can have periodic forgetfulness, but you'll often remember it either moments later or maybe an hour or two later. Like those neurons are working. They're just not working quite as fast. You may have a delay or being slower to recall names, dates, and events. You might have these words that are on the tip of your tongue during a conversation, which can feel annoying, but eventually they come to you. You'll probably take longer to learn new information, like if you were learning a new instrument or learning about a new topic. It may take you a little longer to solve a problem, but ultimately you're going to do it. And, this word multitasking, I really don't think there is such a thing. We tend to move our attention between many, many different things. And when we try to do that, we don't do any of them particularly well. So we will have more problems if you're trying to juggle too many things at once. And that's really what we mean by challenges of multitasking. So all of these things, I think we've all experienced, and they're fairly normal. Beth asked me to share with you a little bit about research. What's been going on that makes us know that we're moving in the right direction? So there was a study that came out in 2014, follow up by a paper in 2016 by Dr. Dale Bredesen. And he's an MD. He's done research for over 30 years. And he was the first one to say, dementia is caused by many different things, and we can't look at one pill or one intervention that's going to help people. They're going to probably have to do a number of different things. Then there's a study called, the Finger study, which is an ongoing study as well. And they looked at just nutrition, exercise, and cognitive training. And the participants in their treatment group got help with these three things. They were put on exercise bikes. They were given counseling around their nutrition and what contributed to better brain health. And they did do some, what we call like brain training or cognitive training. And all of the people in that control group showed improvement in memory, executive functioning, and processing speeds that were still in place 2 months later. So this is just a small subset of what we're going to talk about today. Finally, there was a great study just last year about lifestyle and genes, because people say, well, if I've got the Alzheimer's gene, like the deck is already stacked against me. But in fact, what we have learned is that lifestyle trumps genetics, which means that, yes, you can be born with those genes, but what you do, how you live your life is much more indicative of how clear and sharp your mind will be. All of this is really very good news. So I guess the question then becomes, when do we have to worry about what's going on with our brains? What are some of the things that are maybe not so normal? Well, the first thing is that if you have regularly scheduled appointments, or you've had a conversation with your friend or your adult child in the last day or two, or you've attended an event and you're not remembering these things, that's probably a cause to say, maybe my memory is not quite what it used to be. If you're regularly misplacing items, we all misplace things sometimes, of course. If you're finding you're having trouble focusing, like really paying attention to things. If you forget the names of people close to you, your family or your friends. If you struggle to complete tasks that you've always done pretty well, like balancing your checkbook. If you're having trouble shopping either online or in person, if you're driving and you kind of lose your way, like you're disoriented, you kind of don't remember the things, these things around me don't look so familiar. That's when you should start to pay attention. If you've never balanced your checkbook well, then don't worry about that. But it's these things that you're used to doing. And whenever you're having memory problems that interfere with daily life and activities, I mentioned like forgetting the route to get home, or just remembering how to do things you routinely do. This is the time when you want to make sure you're seeking help. And we'll talk more about that. So, as I mentioned, Sharp-Again's Medical and Dental Advisory Board have identified the following causes of memory loss. We say there are 10, there are actually 12 embedded in here. And we're also always following the research so that we can, if it makes sense and there's research, we will add it to our list. So the first 3, nutritional imbalances and deficiencies, and the health of your gut microbiome, your intestinal tract, what's going on in there? Do you have leaky gut? Are you experiencing inflammation? You might be eating the right kinds of foods, but are you getting enough supplementation and absorption? Then the second thing is toxins in our food, water, air, work, and home environment. So look, there's a lot of things that we can control in our environment, and there are things that we can't. We can't control the general air pollution, but you can control what your air quality is like in your home. So paying attention to these things can be helpful. When we talk about prescription and other medications, we're talking not just about the side effects, we're also talking about the interactions of medications, and also the sheer number of medications that people are on. Because if you look at some of these medications, a few of them you might be on may have side effects that impact cognition. So if you're taking several, it's going to have that kind of snowball effect. Heavy metal toxicity. This is another form of toxins, right? You can find heavy metals in food sometimes, such as big fish, or in silver fillings or other dental work in your mouth, again, in the air. Hormonal imbalances can include anything from the gender hormones like estrogen or testosterone. We could be talking about low levels of thyroid. And then you can also be talking about things like cortisol, which when that is too high, it creates a problem for the body. Low level infections. You know, many times infections and inflammation in the body, you don't feel. They're not, we say you're asymptomatic. So you might have had dental work recently, and sometimes those cause infections and inflammation that you may not feel right away. Lyme's disease has a dementia component. Mold toxicity. I had mold just last year after being in a home that had mold in my basement. Food sensitivities. You may or may not know you have, but you may notice that you have bloating or gas or acid reflux and you're not feeling so well in that department. And then urinary tract infections, which are unfortunately more common as we get older. And again, they can be asymptomatic, but people can become delirious with UTIs that are not addressed. So we know that these things affect cognition. So these are our lifestyle causes: not getting enough exercise, mental stimulation, or social interaction. So these are things that there has been a lot of research on, and we want to make sure that we maintain. Prolonged stress. I'll be talking more about that later. So that's not just, you know, short-term stress, but this is when this goes on for a long time. And I think many people under COVID have felt this sense of prolonged stress. Sleep and breathing problems. Again, we will talk more about this today. And then lastly, physical and emotional trauma. So this could be, you know, physical trauma, could be concussion or traumatic brain injury. It could be, post-traumatic stress syndrome, where you might actually have a physical trauma, but then there's also emotional trauma. And then also in emotional trauma are things like abuse or, any kind of trauma you might have undergone as a child or in midlife. They track people, and if this is not resolved, it can end up blooming, unfortunately, into memory loss and then ending in dementia. So let's talk first about nutrition. So how does nutrition affect the brain? First of all, good nutrition will give you lots of energy. It'll give you the nutrients that you need, that your cells need for energy to keep you going. It will help to hydrate and detoxify you. So these are two different things, right? It's keeping your cells and your blood vessels and your skin all hydrated so that all of the processes in your body are functioning well. But also flushing out the system with good hydration and water every day will help to take those toxins out of your body as well. And also good nutrition will optimize every system in your body. So whether it's your circulatory, your lymphatic, your elimination system, they'll all work better. Poor nutrition often destabilizes blood sugar. And we're going to talk more about that, why it's such a problem. It will create inflammation in the body. It can affect that very, important balance in your good gut bacteria and your bad gut bacteria. So there are all these microbes, as we know now, that live in our gut, and they want to live well together. And sometimes when we take a lot of antibiotics, let's say, or other medications, it can throw that balance off. And so just keeping that in mind can be really helpful. Poor nutrition can often cause fatigue, fogginess, and depression. And we know that depression, while not a cause necessarily of memory loss, it's close, actually. We know that there's a very high correlation. So again, you'd want to eat well to prevent it, but then you'd also want to get that treated if that was something you were dealing with. And then you might hear me talk about toxic load a few times today. So when toxins build up in our body for too long and our tissues can't adequately absorb them, we can start to exhibit memory problems. So again, we're trying to keep our toxic load down. So what can we do? We wanted to share with you today really the biggest bang for your buck. We're going to talk about the things that you could start doing right after this webinar that will help your brain. So first, limit your consumption of sugar and foods made with white flour or that are white, like white rice, pasta, bagels, and any kind of baked goods. These are really nice to have once in a while. But if you make a steady habit of eating simple carbohydrates and sugar, again, it's going to disrupt your microbiome, your gut, and cause you to have digestive issues and cause you to have that brain fog that we talked about. You want to add healthy fats from good quality sources. So if you look on the right side, those are pictures of good fats. Olive oil, avocados, nuts and seeds, in a moderate quantity because they are caloric, but they're if you look at a walnut, it looks just like a brain. Those walnuts are great for your brain. And these healthy fish like salmon, which have a lot of omega-3s and lots of good fats in them. Again, we talked about hydration for your cells and to detox your body. By the way, a rule of hydration, just many people use, is to take half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 150, you would drink about 75 ounces of water a day. That's like 2 liters. That's a lot of liquid, but that's the goal. If you know that that's your goal, maybe it will help you to start drinking more. You want to improve your vitamin, mineral, and nutrient intake. And your regular doctor can and should be actually screening for these normal vitamins that we're all looking at, A and B12 and B6 and B9, and which is your folate and your vitamin D levels, right? So these things can be measured. Moderate your use of alcohol. It contains a lot of sugar, not to mention the fact that alcohol is really a toxin for your body. Many of us can manage it in moderation, and that's really the key words. I think that the government has come out with their guidelines on alcohol, and I think they're rather good. We don't really want to overindulge. We want to eliminate artificial colors, flavors, sweeteners, and preservatives. So this means you need to read your food labels. And chemicals, you'll be able to identify chemicals because you probably won't be able to pronounce them, and you won't know what they're for because they're not food and they don't sound like food. Artificial flavors, you might see colors like yellow dye number 5 or red dye number 3 or whatever. Those are color additives to your food. They're chemicals. They are not healthy for you. Artificial sweeteners, I hate to tell you, I know many people use them. Artificial sweeteners are, again, they're chemicals, but they're also things that we're putting in our bodies that our bodies don't recognize. They don't come off of a tree or they don't grow in the ground. So you really want to eliminate or really have as few of these things as possible. And finally, minimizing pesticides, and herbicides. So how can you do that, and why is it important? Well, again, Roundup that gets sprayed on a lot of products is problematic because it's a neurotoxin. So it affects your brain and your ability to think, as do some of these herbicides. Again, these will add to your toxic body burden. So you want to keep that toxic load down. I've put up here to share with you the environmental working groups, Clean 15 and what we call their Dirty Dozen. Every year you'll see a date up there. So this is 2021's list. We can make this available if in a follow-up email to you. But the Dirty Dozen are the 12 fruits and vegetables that have either the highest amount of spraying with these herbicides and pesticides, or they have other, what would you call them? Like E. coli or other types of bacteria that are known to, infiltrate these different types of crops. So the ones on top, you want to buy organic as much as possible, especially if you eat them a lot. The ones on the bottom, it's okay to buy what we call conventional. So the Dirty Dozen, you want to buy those products that have a 9 on the sticker before the number. The Clean 15, you can just buy straight off. And many of these you'll see have some sort of an outer covering, or they're naturally like pesticide resistant. They just don't have as many, insects eating through them. And I think that we know that about mushrooms. Many of these have that, the outer rinds, like honeydew and cantaloupe. Avocados have a rind, as does pineapple. And then some of these other things, again, kind of are self-protective. So now we're going to talk a little bit about stress, this prolonged stress that I mentioned earlier. And, stress is one of those things that either can be good or not so good for us. So good stress, really, I think of it as it kind of keeps us on our toes. It's it can be motivating for us. Right before a talk, a little bit of stress is good for me, right? Because it gets my adrenaline going and it gets my energy up. However, stress should have a beginning and an end, so that the body and the mind can return to what we call like homeostasis, like a calmness. Harmful stress, on the other hand, is unrelenting. It's ongoing, and it will have negative physical, mental, and emotional consequences for us. And so, many people have experienced a lot of stress that has led to anxiety during COVID. And it's important to find outlets so that you don't feel as stressed. And I think in this country, people have worn stress as kind of a badge of honor over the years. And I think with more and more research coming out, there was just an article about stress and heart health, is that I don't think there's any way that we can be, exposed to stress long-term and not have emotional, negative physical, mental, and emotional consequences. So what are the things that you can do today, starting today? One is to identify what's stressing you out. Like, what are your stressors? Most of us know what they are. Then you can try to take on a practice of mindfulness, non-judgment, and gratitude, really, for what we do have in our lives. You can take time out of each day to breathe and ground yourself. A lot of times when we're anxious or we're worried, our minds are outside of our bodies. They're either worried about what happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future. And what we mean by grounding is to really be here in the now. And the easiest way to do that is to connect to breath. And we do some of that in these small group programs that Beth mentioned, which we'll talk about later. I can't stress, but I can't stress sleep enough. Sleep is so beneficial for all aspects of our lives. And, you know, a lot of people think that we don't need as much sleep as we age. And I'm here to tell you that we absolutely do. We may not sleep as well, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but we still need our sleep. And if you have issues with stress, we're encouraging you to seek help. Here are just, you know, I love this, this slide because it really hits on so many of the wonderful things that you're doing through the Mind, Music, and Movement Foundation. Sharing your feelings, laughing, exercising, getting enough sleep, meditation, yoga, being out in nature, really managing your time, and then being exposed to music. So enjoying all of these things can help reduce your stress. So common sleep problems. We hear these all the time. I can't fall asleep. I have to get up to use the bathroom. I fall asleep fine, but then I wake up at 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning and I have such a hard time getting back to sleep. Or my partner wakes up because they're snoring, or they stop breathing and then I hear them gasping for air, and then I can't go back to sleep. So these are things that we hear a lot. Let's see my slides. There we go. So why does sleep matter? And at Sharp, again, we also monitor what's going on with breathing. So sleep and breathing really go hand in hand. We're not going to talk a lot about breathing today, but one of the things that dentists and sleep specialists have noticed is that our airways are getting narrower. So it's harder for us sometimes to get the oxygen we need. But focusing on sleep itself is so critical. So during deep sleep and REM sleep, which is when you're dreaming, your memory is consolidating. So whatever you've experienced that day, those short-term memories consolidate into long-term memories. And we know that people with Alzheimer's obviously have that problem, right? They're not able to recall those long-term memories. Sleep will help you maintain focus. And then there is this system in the brain, which you may not have heard of, called the Glymphatic System. That is the system that's connected to your cerebral spinal fluid. If you look at the diagram on the right, you will see people either using a vacuum or using brooms. And what they're doing is they are literally sweeping out the debris from the brain. This is what happens every night through your glymphatic system. So the channels in your brain expand, and that cerebral spinal fluid is able to get in there, and it pulls away, it takes away all of the cell's waste and those plaques that build up that you hear that people with Alzheimer's have. This system every night during deep sleep is pulling out those toxins and all of that debris. So that's another reason why deep sleep is so critical. Sleep also matters because, remember, we talked about insulin resistance earlier. So if we're eating a lot of sugar, we can become insulin resistant. Well, the more sleep you have, the more it helps to regulate your insulin utilization. It will be calming for you. Your breathing slows down, as does your heart rate during sleep. And then something called heart rate variability increases. So that sounds a little counterintuitive. Heart rate variability is really the time between your beats. You want the time between your beats to be long because you're calm. When you're anxious, your heart is beating much more rapidly and your heart rate variability is much less, there's much less time between each beat. So also you want your heart rate variability to increase, and that happens during sleep. And we know, I alluded to this earlier, look, most of us don't sleep quite as well as we age. There's a natural decline in deep sleep. Our sleep becomes fragmented, which means we might wake up more often. Our circadian rhythm can creep a little bit so that we want to go to bed earlier, but then we're up earlier. Maybe we'll nap during the day. That's perfectly normal. And the brain will start to atrophy a little bit, certain parts of the brain. But again, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't stay sharp. So how can we improve sleep? Again, starting today, what can you do? Go to bed and wake up at the same time each day. It's part of what we call our sleep architecture. It's like getting into good habits. We create a positive sleep environment. What does that look like? It should be a little cool in your room. You shouldn't be cold at night, but the air should be cool. That will help you sleep better. You want to, if you can help it, not even have a TV in your room, but if you do, make sure that TV is off. Don't have a clock with a big, bright LED display next to your bed. That will impact your sleep. Don't keep your phone on next to your bed on your night table at night. It's best to put computers and phones, any electronics outside your bedroom. And then make your bedroom comfortably dark. I mean, some people really like to have blackout curtains. I'm like one of those people. Other people, it doesn't matter, but make it comfortably dark for yourself. Next, limit caffeine, sugar, alcohol, and fluids, right? So number one, the caffeine and the sugar and the alcohol, whether they keep you up before you can't fall asleep, or they are sure to wake you up at 3 a.m. No question about that. So you want to limit the possibility of that happening. And then obviously limiting your fluids, because you don't want to be getting up a lot during the night. And then getting off your screens. We recommend at least 2 hours before bedtime. I know I need to do that. It will definitely impact my ability to fall asleep. And that's because the screens impact the melatonin in your system. And melatonin helps you get ready for sleep. Okay, what are some other things you can do? If you know you snore, or you have a partner who snores, make sure to get that checked, because you'll be doing them a favor or yourself. You really want to get as much good sleep as possible. And also you need to keep the oxygen levels up in your brain. We also recommending not eating or exercising within 3 hours of going to bed. If you go to bed on a full stomach, you're not going to sleep as well. And exercise for many people can rev up their systems and not allow them to go to bed as early. Try a stress buster to bring your energy down and help you relax. So here are some suggestions: reading, meditating, doing yoga, listening to music, taking a nice hot bath or a shower. If you take a bath, you might want to put a little bit of lavender Epsom salts in, or lavender oil. You can rub a little lavender oil on your feet. These are just some of the things that you can do. But most important is to try to determine, like, what are the root causes of poor sleep, and then have those treated. So I hope these 3 areas and sort of the overview we've presented will help you to see memory loss a little bit differently. We're here to give people hope, because now there is hope. I couldn't say that, more than 10 years ago, but there's been so much research, and there's been so much, so many things that are proving that there are things we can do. People are living longer. So you want to live longer, healthier. We are focusing on prevention. When Sharp Again first got started, it was all about trying to help people who had already been diagnosed. And now the focus has really shifted. It's much easier to prevent memory loss than to reverse it. Although Dr. Bredesen and many others working with people have had success doing that in the very earliest stages. And now that we know these causes of memory loss, we also know that there is treatment to prevent, slow its progression, and sometimes reverse it. So when do you want to seek help? So we would tell you now, the earlier the better. It used to be you wanted to hide it as long as possible because there was no hope. Now, because there is, if you know something's not right, that's called subjective cognitive impairment. That's the best time to get help. In the very beginning, if you have always been great with numbers and you suddenly are having problems with that, that's a sign. Or if you've always remembered people's faces or names, and then you start to have problems with that, that's a signal. And other people may not notice. And there are many things we can do to kind of cover things up. We're very good at that. But the easiest time to get things right again is in that very early stage. Mild cognitive impairment is that next phase where people around you are definitely noticing that you're having some memory issues, lapses, problems, however you want to define it, but you are still functioning well. People with mild cognitive impairment are typically still driving at that stage. But look, this is a progressive disease, so it will most likely get worse. Then it goes into moderate cognitive impairment where you're having difficulty with daily tasks and you need help with that. And then it goes to severe cognitive impairment and needing constant supervision. So this is a really helpful slide to just say to all of us, if we are living longer, we want to live as healthy as we can for as long as we can. So that green line is a typical, lifespan line, right? And it goes down, you stay pretty healthy until maybe your late 60s to mid 70s. And then there's this precipitous drop. But it's fairly progressive. And we would like to push that out to the red line where it's even more gradual. And you really don't notice a tremendous, losing capacity either with cognition or physically, that you still really wake up every morning with purpose for your life until you reach about 85. And then after that, potentially you'll see that there will be more of a decline. The idea is to push that healthy lifespan out further. I'm pushing the button, but it's not moving. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to go back because there was one more slide there. Okay. So I haven't covered all of this today. I'm not going to say this is a review. You've heard some of these things, but these are what we can tell you could do now to start taking better care of your health. You've heard the first two: eating fewer processed foods that come in cans and packages and, packaged goods, boxes, eating less sugar, hydrating your body. We haven't really talked about this intermittent fasting that many people have heard about. It's leaving 12 hours between dinner and breakfast, essentially. So not eating any solid food between, let's say, 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. That will help your gut microbiome. It'll give it a rest. It'll improve your insulin resistance. It'll improve your insulin resistance, and also it will it'll allow you to really feel better. Most people lose weight when they do this at least a 12-hour fast every day. So it helps to curb curb appetite and curb the need to eat all the time. Avoiding toxins and chemicals. We've talked a little bit about that. Again, you want to keep your toxic body burden down. Sleep, getting enough sleep. If you think you've got a breathing issue, getting it treated. And doing enough different types of exercise. So aerobic exercise is that exercise that gets your heart rate up. So that's like fast walking or playing a sport usually. Just walking quickly is a great way to get aerobic exercise. Balance, balance you can get through yoga or Tai Chi, Qigong, Pilates, and strength training is usually lifting free weights, but also Pilates will help with strength training as well. And so will yoga. Doing kind of a combination of things is great. There's also chair yoga, those sorts of things. Challenging your brain. So keeping your brain active, learning new things is really how to challenge our brains. If we keep doing the same old, our brains, those neurons are not going to feel challenged and pushed to grow and to make new connections. That's what we're really trying to do in the brain. So we don't want you to become isolated, as many people did during COVID. So spending time with family and friends, even at a distance or on Zoom, so important. Managing your stress, getting help for trauma, as we mentioned, protecting your brain. If you do any sort of exercise, like riding a bike or skiing or anything that will, cause you to potentially fall, you want to protect your brain. And most importantly, don't wait if you sense a memory problem. So I want to just take a few moments and talk to you about the Stay Sharp coaching program. This is a program we started a couple of years ago. And we now have enough experience to be able to say to you that the people who go through this program have seen improvements in all sorts of areas. The 4 that we focus on are nutrition, exercise, stress, and sleep. And this is a program where you have 2 one-to-one coaching sessions with a health and wellness coach, one in the beginning and one at the end. There are 6 group coaching sessions with your group that is no more than 8 people. It's 5 to 8 people. So 2 coaches, typically 5 to 8 people. There's a tremendous amount of sharing of resources. You set goals, and the group really helps you to meet them. We are so fortunate to have been able to take this program, and it started off costing $249, and it's now down to $79 because we have had donors who have underwritten this program. They see the benefit of it and how important it is. And so Beth and I have talked about a special group for mind, music, and movement so that you can sign up, and we have a dedicated group just for you. Wanted to share with you some things people have said about the group. We all have different issues, but when we share, we learn from each other. This one woman was able to cut down on her snacks by 70%, and her energy levels have gone up. When I focus on my memory, I notice positive changes. It keeps me centered and focused. I know a difference is being made. And then when I'm in a group like this, it inspires me to do better. So these are just some of the things. We've really had some wonderful testimonials from this program. Okay, I don't know. There we go. Just taking a little. So a little bit more about this foundational group program. Your program begins February 18th. We want to enroll people by the 11th because that first week is a week of the one-on-one health coaching. Who is this group for? It is really for people looking to preserve their cognition or who are just beginning to notice lapses in their memory. People who are able to take an active role in enhancing their brain health. So that's going to be who will benefit from it the most. Again, working with a professional health coach, you will, and the group, the peer group, you will be able to begin to modify your lifestyle choices that impact your brain health. You'll learn from each other's experiences, and you'll acquire the tools needed to strengthen your cognition. So again, at the end of the program, when you meet with the coach again, it will really fortify what you've learned, what you've been able to achieve, and that you can take with you. And then you can, a lot of people will continue into the next program. We kind of have these programs continuing because people find that the support of the group is really what's helping them to make the changes that they need. So wrapping up, what can you do? Well, the first thing we can all do is, rather than saying goodbye to our senior moments, we want to help you make them the best they can be. Seek help early, focus on the positive, commit to making at least one positive change to bolster your cognition, and join a Stay Sharp coaching program to maintain your brain health. And I love that Beth and her instructors, they've helped you to do so many of these things already. And this part is really to come in and help you focus on your brain health. So we would love to hear from you a takeaway from today's talk. What is one thing that you learned today that you'll do for your brain? And you can put it in the chat box. Maybe you can raise your hand. Maybe May can see you. But we'd love to hear a little bit from you about something that felt accessible today that you could do. So we have a few things written in the chat box. Oh, Jan, thank you for saying the Dirty Dozen is a free app that you can put on your phone. That's great, because when you go to the store, you'll have that. She also posted, I'm sorry?
It looks like a shopping cart when you.
Oh, great. So people can check it out on their app search bar. And there is an excellent book that I have also read called Breath by James Nestor that talks about breathing. And there's one called Gasp, which talks about sleep and what you can do and what the things you should be thinking about. And then May has posted the registration link for Sharp Again, the special group for you all. So that's the registration link for you. So Ralph is saying that he's going to try to get more aerobic exercise. And Anne, hi Anne. Anne is saying the Dirty Dozen and clean fruits and veggies. I always wondered when it was worth spending the extra for organic fruit and veggies. Okay, so hopefully now you know. Those Dirty Dozen, they're definitely ones to try to buy organic, especially if you eat them a lot. Anyone else want to share about something that they're going to think about doing differently after today's talk? It always reminds me to drink more water whenever I can give this talk. It's just something that is sometimes hard to do. So Lorena is saying drinking half your weight daily sounds like a lot. It is. And let's say it's a potential goal. But I imagine, I have to tell you, I personally was so shocked when I was actually charting how much I was drinking a day. I wasn't drinking nearly enough, like less than half of what I should be drinking. So I think what this it hopefully encourages you to do is to up your increase, up your intake of water, to drink more than you have been doing before, because it's only going to be helpful to you. Okay, so thank you for those of you who have shared, and keep putting them in the chat box. We'll keep checking back. So what are some next steps? We encourage you to go to our website, www.sharpagain.org, because there's a lot of information on there, including what we call recovery stories. So people who have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia and were able to get their brain back again and are functioning very well. Sign up on our email list. We do e-blasts at least once a month. We run some very fun activities. We have a crosswords for a cause coming up in a couple months. I think it's in April. So that's a fun activity. It's a fundraiser. It's a nominal amount, but kind of gets your brain going. And you'll receive a lot of other information from our email list. You can join or refer someone to our programs, and that's a general email address for any questions that you might have. And to support Sharp Again naturally so that we can continue offering these programs. I think like, Beth's nonprofit, it's so important to support these organizations that are really helping do so much good and hopefully keeping people healthy as they get older. Okay, so that was the end of my prepared remarks. I'm happy to take questions. That's my email address. If you want to reach out to me at all for anything, I'm here to help. And so I'm going to stop sharing and we can have the group back up and we can take any questions, or if you have any comments, Beth, or anything you'd like to add.
I just wanted to say thank you, Lisa. I thought that was incredibly informative and manageable, because sometimes it can be overwhelming when you start thinking about brain health. So I really liked your presentation.
Thank you.
I have to switch off to another meeting as I do keep my brain busy.
Well, that's great. Thank you for coming and hearing us today.
Well, I thought you did a great job, and I'm so glad that there's a link through Mind Movement and Music to be able to participate in your program. So thank you for making that available to us.
Sure. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Lisa, it was wonderful. Your presentation was fabulous, and we really appreciated your time today. I am thrilled to have this little affiliation, the two foundations. I think it's so valuable to helping people with a neurodegenerative disease. Again, my motto right now, what I'm learning through watching people coming into our foundation and our classes is it's almost like this becomes your job, it's like, I want to get briefcases for everybody with a little toolkit, because I think it's so important. And the joy and the laughter and the friendship that evolves from it as well is just fabulous. But as you and I've discussed, one of the most valuable things that we can offer is to have you and Jan and all these wonderful people involved to help an awareness of healthy lifestyle, healthy eating, along with sleep. And I think it's wonderful. And I encourage everyone who's watching, because some of you are near and dear and close to me. Most of you are, everyone is actually, except for Susan and Joan. I would love to see you all participate in our group with Lisa, because I think it's a nice way to really look at some of the things that are so important to us living well with a neurodegenerative disease. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time, Lisa. It was wonderful.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if you have time, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them about the program or about anything that I spoke about today.
Anybody have anything they'd like to ask? You're good? I think it's a wrap.
Great. All right. Well, I thank you so much, Beth, for the opportunities, and we look forward to seeing
Sure.
some of your people in our Sharp Again programs.
Thanks so much.
Take
And
care.
Thank you for participating and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.